Alrighty. So I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Select Board for Monday, June 17th. We are just coming out of an executive session and have a, fingers crossed, relatively short agenda. We will have announcements and review the agenda, then have a public comment period, followed by the town manager's report. In that, we may discuss the board's agenda schedule, consider ratifying the town manager's appointment of a new lifeguard. We will discuss and potentially determine town council appointments for the coming year. We will consider making the annual appointments of the select board. We will potentially discuss a fire chief's contract. We have before us a one-day beer and wine license for Groton Conservation Trust for their annual sunset event. And then we will at 7:15 discuss and approve the declaration of trust for the Thomas D. Hartnett Memorial Trust and Scholarship Fund. We then have all of our typical ongoing issues, an opportunity for liaison reports, and one set of minutes from June 10th. So, does anyone have any announcements?
I have one change to the agenda under the town manager's report. Under item number 2, I want to also appoint Riley Bowden as a lifeguard, if that's okay with the board. I'd like to make that additional appointment tonight on top of Amanda Lacombe.
Alrighty. Any other announcements? Any public comment? All right. Mark, can we jump into the town manager's report?
Yes, we can. And I would ask the board to ratify my appointments of Amanda Lacombe and Riley Bowden as lifeguards for the Groton Country Club.
So moved.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to jump up to item number 6 and ask the board to approve a one-day beer and wine license for the Groton Conservation Trust for the annual sunset event on June 27, 2019 from 7 to 8:30.
Someone like to
So
make that
moved.
motion?
Second.
And Mark, just for clarification, is this the same event? They just
Yeah.
picked a different rain date?
This is the rain
Is that-
date.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
It is close to 7:15, it's 7:14, I think all the trust commissioners are here. Is there anybody else coming? Okay, so I'd ask the board to move to the 7:15 event. In your packet is a proposed declaration of trust to create the Thomas D. Hartnett Memorial Trust and Scholarship Fund. It has been adopted by the Trust Commission. I'm asking the Select Board to adopt it this evening. I think it's a wonderful event to honor a man who gave many years of his life to the town of Groton. Well-respected, well-regarded, was a mentor to me in my time when I first came here as town manager. And I can't think of a better way to honor his legacy than creating this trust. And I know there are members of the family here, members of the Trust Commission here. I'd ask you guys to come up to the table and add anything that you want to what I just said, but I would ask the board to consider adopting this declaration of trust tonight in conjunction with the Trust Fund Commission.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Doug Hartnett. I'm here this evening with my mother, Norma, and my brother, Dave. And first of all, we just wanted to thank all the people that have been instrumental in helping us get together this important scholarship fund in the memory of my father, Tom. The trust commissioners, Don Black, Karen Toomey,
And our cousin Mike Hartnett.
and our cousin Mike Hartnett, too. And not just the people that we see here this evening, but the people in the community that helped out, that gave their time, that encouraged us to do what we've done over the last 18 months. And by virtue of everybody's efforts, we're very happy to be able to be here this evening and look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
So should the board decide to go ahead and vote this, there's gonna be a lot of signatures that are needed. I'll need signatures from the Hartnett family, as well as the Commission of Trust Funds and the Select Board. I'll act as the notary public and notarize all the signatures tonight, because I know who all of you are, except for you, Rachel. Keep an eye on you.
Mark, so just in terms of process.
Yep.
the verbiage that we have before us was just kind of an amalgam of a couple others that we already have in
Yeah,
place.
thanks to the great work of Karen Toomey, who is the assistant to the Trust Fund Commission. She drafted this trust
Okay.
based on other trusts that the Trust Fund Commission has implemented. We put this together, we sent it to town council and asked him to approve it as to form. Rod Hoffman got back to me on Thursday last week, approving it to form, so it's been
Okay.
approved by everybody that needs to approve it. Hopefully the board approves it tonight.
And the trustees have already approved it, correct? It's not a joint, is it a joint vote, or has it already been approved
No,
by the
it's two
commissioners?
separate votes. They have to approve it, you have to approve it.
Okay.
The trust fund commissioners, I'm sorry to point that at you, the trust fund commissioners will actually oversee it, implement it, and manage it.
Okay, but it's not a joint vote
No,
of the two committees,
no.
just for logistical
Yep.
purposes?
Two
All right.
separate votes.
I have no other questions. Does anyone else have questions?
I don't have a question, I just would like to make a statement that I think that Tom did a tremendous amount for this town in his capacity as an employee, as a selectman, as a citizen, and he did a wonderful job. And he was a very good person, and I miss him, and I miss talking with him and seeking counsel on some obscure issues. And a lot of people miss talk with Tom, and Norma, thank you and your family for putting this together.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
So would someone like to make a motion?
You want to say anything, David?
I make a motion
I'm all set. I think Doug pretty much covered it.
that, let me put the words around here. Don't we have a document that we're agreeing to?
Yeah, it's in your packet. Let me get it up on the screen for you.
Because we can just identify the motion to map to the
We're on page 22.
proposal.
Well, while John is getting the wording right, I just would like to add to Josh's comments. I enjoyed all of my interaction with Tom over many years, and he was an enthusiastic and he was an excellent model
Which is dated
for people to participate in town government. He was cheerful and personable and enjoyed talking with people and had good ideas and stood by them. So I think it's a wonderful tribute to have this scholarship.
Thank you.
I too think it's great for the town. It's very appreciated.
Yes.
Tom was a great guy. And it's great that it's going to education.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a
So,
motion
ready for my
to-
motion?
Yes.
I move that we adopt the declaration of trust, Thomas D. Hartnett Memorial Trust and Scholarship Fund, dated June 17th, 2019.
Second?
All right. Any further discussion?
Don?
Discussion?
Yes.
May I just make one comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
I echo your sentiments of Tom. Mark, Josh, Becky, you've depicted him, John, depicted him very accurately. I'm just sorry that as we sit here tonight, based on the time and effort that Tom put forward to this town, we're giving such a scholarship that I'd like to see it much larger. I think based on the time and effort that Tom put into this town, we should be giving a deserving senior upon graduation every year a full scholarship to the college of his or her choice. And years from now, I hope it's not a meaningless transfer of a handoff of a piece of paper on graduation day or class day, whenever that is. I hope it's something that transcends time, and as that piece of paper awarding that scholarship to that deserving individual is handed off, Tom's spirit and dedication is transferred into that individual, and he or she becomes a dedicated servant of the town of Groton or some town like it. And I think if that is the case, then we've been successful in our endeavor. So, thank you.
And to your point, if there are townspeople out there who have not heard of this or would like to make a donation toward the principal on this fund, is that still possible?
I think they'll always accept money, won't they, Mike? Send them in over there.
And
Gladly.
so, someone who wanted to make a donation to this particular scholarship fund should get in touch with
Commissioners of the trust.
either the commissioners of the trust or Mike Hartnett, our town treasurer, who I trust would give accurate advice.
I would say any of those fine people over there could take
Yes.
care of the operation.
Thank you, Becky.
So we have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very
Thank you
much.
all.
Thank you. Generous.
Time to sign.
Absolutely, just grab a microphone. So this is the one-day license that you just approved. Sign it, pass it that way, then it's just our phone.
Talking about Tom, we live right across the street from Tom Hartnett. You know what we miss most? Hearing him laugh. He could be in the TV room and laugh, and you could hear it in my house. It was unbelievable how alive and vibrant he was. To Don's point, 22 years ago, we came to town, to the town fathers, the select board, with the Peter Toomey Memorial Scholarship, and presented approximately $20,000, which people had contributed when Peter died. And that has grown in that 22 years to double at least what it was. And we get great joy out of awarding that scholarship each year and going through this. It's quite a thing to see all the kids and their background and what they want to do. But my wife's mother, Edith Humlin, passed away 2 weeks ago at the age of 104 in Rockport, Massachusetts. And in her obituary, she said that people who wished to contribute could contribute to two entities. One being Scout Hall in Rockport, which she had a great association with as a former Girl Scout leader and all of that, and the Peter Toomey Memorial Scholarship. And do you know, over $1,000 has been contributed 22 years later to Peter's Memorial Scholarship Fund in Groton. So that is going to happen for Tom and with Tom, and it's a good thing. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Tony.
Thank you.
I'll have this, Karen, I'll notarize all this, and I'll leave it for you tomorrow to take, and I'll leave it with Mike, and you guys can figure out from there.
I'm Martha McClure, and I'm now a Trust Funds Commissioner. I also was when we started up, is the way I really put it, the trust funds. Tom is instrumental for not only everything that he's done for everyone in town, but he actually took the stocks out of the town safe, and he's the one who got us actually moving to be able to reinvest the trust funds. So what we have today is thanks to Tom, and I think that we've come full circle now that we have a fund in Tom's name. And I just want people to really appreciate, from a trust commissioner's point of view, what we have today, $19 million, is thanks to Tom Hartnett, so.
As the parent of a rising senior, I will assure you that the financial piece of this cannot be overlooked, but it sounds like his municipal commitment, love of life, and sense of humor are also fondly remembered, and hopefully will transfer along with that annual award and the memories everyone has of him. It's fabulous. Thank you so much.
So back to the,
Back to the mundane.
I'm sorry?
Back to the mundane.
Back to the mundane. Back to my town manager's report. The next item is, as previously discussed, the board needs to determine who will serve as town council for the ensuing year. The board, I should say ensuing, not ensuring. I guess you can insure the year too. I did that before Judy pointed it out. As directed by the board, I've given you a summary of legal expenses over the last 3 years. There are 2 spreadsheets for your review. The first spreadsheet is a high-level summary of our expenses, while the second spreadsheet contains a more detailed breakdown by specific cases and categories. I've also given you testimonials from some of the departments that the board asked for last week, and earlier this afternoon, or yesterday, the board had received an email from town council proposing a labor stipend of $1,250 a month to handle questions in general labor questions, but anything having to do with contract negotiations, collective bargaining, litigation, and the like would be billed out at the $190 an hour. The chair asked me to present a spreadsheet to the board that outlined that as well. I provided that to the board this afternoon, as well as the town council. So the board needs to decide what you want to do. I'm here to answer any questions that you have. To give you this spreadsheet, the first spreadsheet that I've given you here is a high-level summary based on fiscal year of what we've spent, and I tried to give categories: a legal retainer, labor outside retainer, which would be anything having to do with the issues that I talked to before, the litigation level based on the years, real estate, which is billed separately, investigations, which is billed separately, the appellate tax board, which is billed separately, accumulated disbursements, which is reimbursable expenses to council. And then this fiscal year, we have Brooks and Durensis did have some questions that were asked of them relative to labor that was built out at $190 an hour, which was on top of what we paid. K&P this year is our labor council. Conservation Commission issues are billed separately and paid for through the Conservation Commission's trust. So in fiscal year 17, we spent $48,593 in legal. Fiscal year 18, we spent $43,485, and so far this year, fiscal year 19 through April, we've spent $144,868. The second spreadsheet that I've given you is a lot more detail, and I hope you've had a chance to review it. But this gives you a really detailed breakdown of the actual cases that were done, and it's all summarized up on the first sheet. But I wanted to give you the backup detail that you have here tonight that gives you all of that cost broken down by what the cases are and the various categories. And then the spreadsheet that I sent out to you this afternoon takes the KP cost. I did not include July, because in July, KP was our town council. So I did not include the July cost, because they paid the retainer $1,250 plus whatever else we had that month. So to do a cost-to-cost comparison, August through April, I took the KP bill and I read the hours, and I put anything that was general labor into the first category, which would be the retainer of $1,250. Anything having to do with something that was billable, I broke out either union grievance, union contract, union mediation, or investigation, broke that out, multiplied that by the hourly rate that Brooks Durensis would bill us at $190 an hour, added it all up. This is what we paid KP, this is what we would pay under that to Brooks Durensis. And the main reason for that increase is all of these 5.2 hours were billed at $190 plus reimbursement. That 0.5 hours under general labor with the retainer, and this would be the same if KP was our attorney, would be $1,250. You see what I'm saying? So that's why that's that disparity. Did the same thing in each month, August, October, and the like, right down the line. And at the end of the day, the grand total for KP that we paid them since September for labor issues was $19,034.63. Following what I did here on the spreadsheet, it would be $22,878, a difference of $38.43. The difference here is there's $555 of reimbursable expenses that I paid to KP that I couldn't all of a sudden say they'd be the same reimbursement expenses to Brooks Durensis, so I did not include that in the Brooks Durensis breakdown. I would imagine there'd be some reimbursable expenses, I just don't know what. So that's all the information the board asked for. I believe I gave you all the information you requested. I hope I did. So now the board needs to make a decision on, do you want to continue? Well, actually, there's 3 things that the board should probably decide. Issue 1, stay with Brooks Durensis as general town council. Stay with KP as labor council. Issue 2, or issue 3, go to one firm for all town council services, including labor. which would be either Brooks to Rensis or KP, or issue a new RFP and start from scratch. I believe that's what the board has before you tonight. So that's it. Be happy to answer any other questions that you have.
So I have a couple of questions, Mark.
Yep.
For this year, you said those were the costs through April.
Yep,
The retainers are also through April?
yes.
Okay. And then, under the Conservation Commission column, I'm looking at the yellow spreadsheet that I can follow a little more readily.
Sure.
Were there no Conservation Commission
Correct.
expenses? Okay, so that's not something that was in a retainer previously? with
No,
KP,
no, no,
that's
no,
just
there
the
was
one-
just no
okay.
conservation expenses in 17 and 18.
Perfect.
They all hit
Right.
this year.
Yep, just wanna make sure. I
Because
understood it.
if there were conservation commission expenses, that would have been billed out at $190 an
Right.
hour, or whatever the fee was.
Okay. Other questions, thoughts?
I don't even know where to begin. I cannot make sense of these three charts of numbers. I can't find how one chart correlates with the other. I'm not sure that answering all of my questions about the money, actually is worth our time. I'm not sure that the money is the main issue in making these decisions. But I'll start asking my questions if you think it's important.
I mean, I think it's always important that everyone understand what we're potentially voting on.
Okay, well, just starting with this yellow chart. So, Mark, are we to understand that the first column, legal retainer, in 2019 is Brooks and Durensis, but the other 2 years is KP?
Correct.
And then the next column, labor retainer, who is it?
Labor retainer in fiscal year, in all 3 fiscal years was KP, because the 1706 in the labor retainer in the bottom column there for fiscal 19, that was the July retainer payment to KP for the labor retainer.
Sure.
In 2017 and 2018, when we were with KP, we had combined general legal and labor at a $40,000 retainer. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, so maybe that,
No, wait a minute. No, that's not right, Josh. Let me
Well,
correct that.
the numbers of legal along with labor add up to 40,000 for 17 and 18, do they not? Or actually, $30,000 they add up to in 17, 30,000 in 18, and approximately
A little less than that, 38, no, 28.
30,000 in 17.
The deal we had with,
Okay.
the deal we had with KP in fiscal 17 and 18 was $2,500 a month retainer, which was split 1250 usually, unless there was no labor that particular month, and it was just 2,500 for the retainer for general legal. That's why you see in the first year 16,250 versus 13,750, because there was 1 month where the entire retainer was paid for general legal. But the total retainer paid to KP for both labor and legal was $30,000, and then everything outside of the retainer was billed at $170 an hour. In fiscal 19, we pay a retainer of $4,000 a month to Brooks Durensis for general legal, and then we pay KP $190 per hour for all labor questions. There's no retainer. I hope that's clear.
okay. Continuing on the yellow chart, litigation, the huge amount at the bottom for FY 19, 41,000. Of
Yeah.
that, about 30,000 is the Johnson
Yes.
case.
Yeah, and what I did, Becky,
Yeah, I see that.
it's on the next page, yeah.
All right, investigations on the yellow chart,
Yep,
the 2019 expense, that includes the $10,000 to Mead Tellerman?
yes. It includes 2 investigations that were done. One started in June of 2018,
So that's
which
the
went into July of
884.
2019, and then the other was in January, February, March, April of 2019.
Okay,
These are
so,
fiscal years we're referring to.
Correct.
and, okay.
So those are two separate investigations, Becky.
Yes. Okay, so, the chart that you sent today that lists KP costs by month in 2018, where do those numbers show up on this the black and white spreadsheet?
It shows up on the line item that says labor outside retainer.
It's the third column, right?
Yep. See this column here that says labor outside retainer, 19,899.37? That's the KP money, but there's, July is included in that number, and there's some general legal, because they were still doing the Shara case and everything else. So you're not gonna get the numbers to match 100% because there's some general labor, general legal in the KP bill in August and September for some of the transition pieces that I had to pay for as well. But you see, it's 19,899.37, and then the total on this is 19,034, so there was a little bit of extra money, that's why it doesn't match entirely. On this spreadsheet here, I was trying to give you a direct labor cost.
I see, okay. What is covered under the real estate column on the spreadsheet you had sent earlier?
This column here, real estate,
Yes.
anything having to do with the question relative to filing a deed, anything having to do with, if we were negotiating something that the Conservation Commission wasn't involved in, if I was doing something with Squanicook Hall or the Tarbell School, that's the real estate charges that you see paid to KP mostly. I broke out Prescott because the Prescott lease was specifically listed on the bill as a separate item.
Right.
So when we go to this page, Mark,
This
not
one
the
here?
yellow one, yeah, are there specific columns that total up to real estate, or is it a portion of this column and a portion of that column?
If you look at the real estate, 1751, 935, the 4486, and then the Prescott, I put in the real estate column. I didn't break it out separately, I just kept all real estate here, so this includes Prescott. I didn't want to have too many, I was trying to summarize and not make it too,
Yeah, I just think it's not, for me anyway, it's not necessarily clear which of the page 2 items are real estate
okay.
and which ones are litigation, but that's fine.
On the second page, I guess we're talking about.
This one?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was curious about back there in 2017 and FY 2018. So February 2017, there's no charge there for labor retainer.
Yeah, because what I said to you is, if there were no labor questions in the month, they charged us the 2,500 totally for general legal.
I see.
I thought I
Okay.
said that, if I didn't, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
did.
You did.
you
You
maybe
did.
did, I didn't follow, and then, so the same thing in March
For March
2018.
of 2018, there was like one small question, but there was a lot going on
They
in general,
charged all the rest.
general legal, yep.
I looked back at the materials that, from a year ago, last summer, when we were considering making a change,
Mhm.
and I couldn't actually tell from this printout, because it didn't print very well, but was KP going to raise their rates if we had kept them this year?
That's a great question, and the answer to that is yes. If we kept them, they wanted to increase the billable hours for litigation to 180, and I believe they wanted to increase the retainer to, I think, 3,000 a month. I have to go back and look, Becky, but yes, the answer to your question is yes.
So, I mean, we should remember that if we're trying to compare this year's Brooks and Durensis costs to what theoretically KP would have charged, but we don't know. I mean, it would have been more than they were charging.
In 17 and 18.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Um,
It would have been $10 an hour more labor, on the litigation labor rate. And I think they wanted to increase the retainer to $3,000 a month, which was a $500 increase. I'll go back and confirm that.
So the chart you sent today is supposedly showing us how we would have paid labor costs this year if we had had Brooks Durensis as our labor attorney.
Brooks Durensis sent an email to you over the weekend that
Yes.
said that if the
Right.
board wants to go to a retainer on labor, we would charge $12.50, and then there were a lot of things that would be outside the retainer.
Right,
Allison asked me to take that and apply it to this year if it had been in place this year,
I see, okay.
and that's what I did.
Any other questions?
I don't have other questions about those numbers, but I did have some other questions, but I would see to other people if they have questions.
Looks like you're on a roll.
So my question, having read the comments from town department heads and others who've weighed in, I know on our board, there is a policy that, board members are supposed to get permission from the chair before talking directly with town council.
Or the town manager.
Indeed, permission from the chair or the town manager. So I'm wondering, do we also have that policy with department heads?
Absolutely, no department head can go to town council without my permission,
Right,
or chair's permission. The department heads come to me because I'm here during the day.
right, but so some of the back and forth, I only skimmed over, I believe we got a response from Paul, late this afternoon, which I only skimmed over, but, you know, obviously what some of those department heads said is concerning, but, if there is, if they are being held up by not being able to directly communicate with town council, I wonder if that's part of what is
Once I
causing
grant,
some problems.
once I grant permission on a certain issue to town council, I only grant it once. So, once they go to town council on a subject, they are with town council until that subject is resolved. So they don't have to come back to me each time, say, hey, Mark, can I call him today? No, that's not how it works. That would be ridiculous if we did that, I think.
Okay. I also wondered who would be doing the appellate tax board work, and perhaps we should ask Paul to answer that question. That was something that Jonathan seemed to have sought the answer on and not felt like he didn't get an answer about who would be handling appellate tax board work.
Is that something, Mark, that you have an answer for, or is
I don't.
Yeah, if you don't mind, either grab the microphone or come on up to the table.
We have two appellate tax board lawyers. Tom Koppelman has extensive experience doing appellate tax board work. And Dan Deutsch does the detailed work. So it depends on, like, just handling an ATV case now where they didn't file on time, so we wanted to do a motion to dismiss regarding the timing. So if it's the detailed motion stuff, then we usually select Dan Deutsch to handle that. If it is more trial evaluation of assessed value of the properties, then usually we ask them to come and take that.
Thank you.
So it does depend on the case. We had asked, send us the case and we'll evaluate it, and he never did.
Okay. Yeah, John?
Are you all through? I just want to make a comment on having looked at the documents on this communication back and forth, and I think there is a problem in communication, and both ends of the line can do better. Speaking only for the town side, I think it would behoove us to put a protocol in place that the department heads will use when they contact council that says, be clear about what you want, when you want it, how you want it, is it telephone call, email, and be much clearer about those expectations, so that we communicate the expectations and they have an opportunity to say, great, we can do that, or can we negotiate something here, but it will help us to be clearer on what we're asking, with what we're asking for.
And Mark, just as a question
Yep.
around that, because I had the
I'm
same note,
listening.
is there a protocol?
Everything I say when they contact town council to start off in writing, and then from there, if you have to go to phone calls, go to phone calls. But we try to start off with everything in writing, so that there's a record of it going to town council. And I ask them to copy me, and then once I get that initial email, I expect emails back and forth to copy me on responses, which should happen. Or if they're talking on the phone, they talk on the phone.
Okay.
But I think we have a protocol in place that works.
I just
Maybe
think
need
we
to
have to
refine it.
fine-tune
We
it
need
a
to
little bit.
fine tune it. I'll accept that.
I think it'll help us.
And along those lines, Mark, have the concerns that the department heads raised and things been discussed somehow at Brooks and Durensis, or?
I have not. I came to the chair of the Board of Selectmen with my concerns.
If I could,
Yeah,
just on a question of protocols, we have a form that many of our towns use, and we like, it's called a request for legal services. It's a piece of paper, and it has on it, when is the deadline, what are they looking for? Is it a document, or is it quick advice? And at the bottom, we identify, is it retainer, or is it outside the retainer? The towns like this because they don't want to, they want to know up front, is this going to be hourly, or is this going to be retainer? And it may very well be, if we say that this is labor, or this is real estate, they may decide, no, we're not going to spend that. So there is a form, I can supply it here.
That form was never given to us at the beginning, right? Because I don't remember seeing that. So we operated under the way that we've always done our work with town council.
Yes, I'm looking at ways to improve communication. That would improve things at our end, make things clearer as to what the expectation is of people. If they want us to, for example, approve a contract as to form, we just approve, we look at it, see if we want to make any changes, we approve it as to form. If they are looking for us to analyze the contract, is this the best kind of contract, or we suggest other contracts? That needs to be clearer to us. And a form would really help a lot. Another thing that would help with communication is that you get a packet. We wonder if we could get a copy of that packet. I'd read it, at least I'd see what the board's interests were, what you were looking at, particularly your minutes, so I could see what you voted on in the past, where you're headed with different things. So instead of our being in the dark about where the town is heading, this would allow us to be much closer in the loop.
Mr. Durant, I have a question. That form you call, that's an intake form, I'd call it an intake form.
Yeah, essentially, if you go to a restaurant, you order
Right.
food, you see the waitress write down, or waiter write down on a piece of paper. She goes and then gives it to the chef. If I get an RLS, I have a piece of paper that walks through the system so that the people who are working on things, because I don't do everything myself, I try to supervise everybody, but they would have a piece of paper in front of them, and then when it's done internally, I know that it's done, I can keep track of it. It's just an easier way. We call it an RLS, request for legal services. There's a signature for the town manager or for the chair of the board.
So it would seem to me that it's a starting point for us, and
Yes.
I think there might be some advantages in the process of identifying up front whether it's gonna be, within the retainer or outside of the retainer, because you may, when it's gonna be outside the retainer, may wanna spend a little time with that question of, is this worth pursuing or not? And it would facilitate you getting better oversight when we're opening up maybe Pandora's box without thinking that's what it was, so, good start point.
Absolutely. Other questions?
I have another question from Mr. Haddad. So, do you see an advantage to being new to this, labor and general counsel? Do you see an advantage to one single counsel for both in operationally and or financially?
I do see an advantage having one law firm to do both. It was good when we had one law firm previously. So the answer to your question is yes, it is good to have one law firm to do it. My issue moving forward would be, I am really comfortable with our current labor attorney, and I don't want to lose him. He does a great job for us, so I do not want to lose that labor attorney. Hope that answers your question, John.
Thank you.
Thoughts, questions, Josh?
Yeah. So, let me start off by saying that I agree with the town manager that I would prefer to see one firm handling general labor and, general legal and labor. It was a lot easier when we were under that format. That said, while we were with K&P, who was handling both, we had some response time issues relative to general legal questions, getting those answers in a timely fashion. Sometimes they'd occur and be received 5 minutes before a meeting or half an hour before a meeting, which put us into a difficult situation when having to render a decision that evening, and I was uncomfortable with it. I think with that said, and in so much as Brooks and Durensis has made a commitment to going through our bylaws and checking things out as part of their general retainer for the current year, and in so much as we did not appoint them until August of 2018, that we should afford them the opportunity to fulfill their commitment to following through with that review. As well as allowing them to have a full 1 year under their belt. While there were some communication issues, as expressed and conveyed by our department heads over certain issues, and while I'm not really happy with grammatical errors and spelling errors coming from attorneys, I'm more concerned with the overall content that comes from them rather than a few mistakes, which I am equally guilty of myself. So, I propose that we allow them to continue as legal counsel through August 31st, and during such time, take it under consideration to look for proposals from Brooks and Durensis and from Copeland and Page outside of the RFP process, which is allowed by Mass General laws, in terms of including general legal and labor from both parties, and then move the decision forward to at some point in August. That's what I would propose, Allison.
Is that a motion?
Well, I'd like to hear from my fellow board
Yeah,
members,
let's-
but that's where I'm heading.
Talk about that
Okay.
before we put a motion.
Becky?
Yeah, so I'm on the similar thought process as you are. However, there is the Johnson case, which we have spent a huge amount of money for Brooks and Durensis to recreate the file and prepare to go to trial. The trial date's in September. So I don't think it would be wise for us to set ourselves up to make a decision at the end of August and then have to go either back to KP or go to a third attorney to
May I
handle
address
that trial. So I wonder if we should, instead of 3 month or 2 month, whatever it is at this point, look at till, I don't know, the end of December for, and I also share, I think something, an opinion that was stated earlier, that if we haven't given them any feedback until now, or until just recently about dissatisfaction, that's really not a good way for us to be operating. We ought to give them the opportunity to improve, having highlighted the areas that need improvement, and give them some time to show us how they can do it. I also like very much the idea of asking to have a proposal that might help us with the cost of this, because it obviously is higher than we would like to be paying.
Can I address the first part?
Yes.
Becky? With regards to the Johnson case, if you stay with Brooks Lorenzus, no issue. If you decide to change counsel from Brooks Lorenzus, you can appoint them as special counsel to handle the Johnson case to conclusion. Nothing prevents you from doing that. They can reject it, but there's nothing to prevent it. We're not paying a retainer for that. We're paying $190 an hour on that. So if you want to name them special counsel for that case, if you decide to change, there's nothing preventing you from doing that. They'd have to agree, but I can't see them walking away from that case with all the work they've done on it so far.
However, that's a good point, and maybe that is the way to go. But in general, I think that we have already experienced the potential pitfalls of having more than one town council firm. I would like it to be one firm for everything.
John, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I think the third option that Josh talked about was going out for a new proposal from Brooks and Durentis and from KP. And I feel strongly that if we're gonna go out, we shouldn't limit it to just two places. We should find out what's on the marketplace and go through the whole thing. I think that's fair, is what's fairest to everybody.
Can I respond
Yeah.
to that? John, you were not on the board last year when we did this, and when we did issue a full RFP, we got, I think, 4 responses, and we deemed one of them inadequate because they either did not respond to certain pieces of it, or they said they would not be able to do certain pieces of it. They were a small firm, as I recall. The other 3 were KP, Brooks Durensis, and Mead Tallerman. I think our experience has shown that we aren't necessarily inclined to think we would get better service from Mead Tallerman at this point. So it's not that there might be some new firm that's appeared on the landscape, but I'm not sure that going through a full RFP process would bring in any different respondents than KP and Brooks and Durensis.
I still think we should try that, because it's my understanding that, and it's hearsay primarily, but that a couple members of the board and Mark may already have had some conversations with K&P about the future.
Well,
And,
wait a minute, who?
since the whole board wasn't invited to participate in that, I think, to be fair to everybody, we need to let the market come to us and tell us who's out there.
I would like to address that. I was invited to a meeting that the town manager requested that I attend with the Lauren Goldberg, who's the managing partner for Copeland and Page. And in so much as Copeland and Page was our labor council, and in so much as we had been with them for 20-plus years prior to switching.
25.
Okay. I was invited to that meeting to talk about how we feel about legal services in general. And I attended that meeting, and I readily admit it. But that meeting wasn't for the purposes of switching counsel. It was to address previous concerns that we had. And I'll tell you, I lit into her over the Indian Hill advice that we got. And I feel that that was one of the major reasons why we changed legal counsel and response time and all the various things. So in so much as the RFP is not required for legal services, and in so much as the town manager invited me, I feel bad that you were not invited, John, and that any other board members were not invited. But that said, this meeting was held at the request of the town manager.
Just to follow up on that, I had the same meeting with Barry and Paul to go over legal services from Brooks to Rensis. And I wanted Barry to participate in the meeting with, KP, but he said, I'm outgoing chair. He wasn't running for reelection at that point and begged off. I asked the vice chair and Josh to join me for that meeting. So it was just to go over the same type of issues on what we were doing. And Josh took the opportunity to let her know how he felt about the Indian Hill decision.
That's not like him.
No, it's not. I was
Very
shocked.
shocking.
But it's something that we had done, and Josh had done a very good job of conveying our displeasure when they were being interviewed. So
Yeah,
it
that's
sounds
true.
like it was a refire of the same cannon round, if you will. So it just disappoints me that the board wasn't involved in that. And so I think, to be fair to everybody, we should not limit it to just two. And I agree with you, Becky, maybe we don't find anybody that, maybe they are the best two. But let's not make an assumption on that.
I'm fine with that, John. I don't have a problem with that. It's a level playing field, but in all fairness, to get back to my point of 10 minutes ago, to allow Brooks and Durensis to fulfill a full 12-month obligation and to come through with commitments that they made to us as a town in terms of the reviews, as well as to Becky's point, to carry on with litigation, and to Mark's point, that in the event we were to contemplate a change, we could hire them as special counsel to finish the Johnson case or to continue with the Johnson case. So I think it makes a lot of sense, John, to put this out, but today, I'm not comfortable with it. I'd like to give them their 12-month period before we
Right.
come to that. That's just me.
That's only fair.
I'm
We
not
had
saying
dis-
do it today. I'm saying if we're gonna do it.
Right.
Because we had discussed this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought we had agreed to just continue with the arrangement as it is.
Carryover appointment, was it, Mark?
For both Brooks Durensis and KP.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't really want to have this keep coming up on our agenda.
Till a fixed point.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Make a
should
motion.
we then suggest that we bring it back in,
End of August?
I'm gonna say the end of October. I want that trial to happen.
I was gonna go for the full fiscal year.
Full fiscal year being in next June?
Yes.
Well, we have some unsettled point of whether the contract began with Brooks and Durensis began on July 1st.
No, it didn't begin in
Well,
July.
well, I'm simply saying at the beginning of a fiscal year, or whether it went for 12 months from the date it was signed. And there
No.
seems to be some uncertainty
No, I
between the
think
two
it's-
parties on
No, the
what's
contract
binding.
doesn't have a specific end date. It says they shall be engaged as town council, and it shall continue month to month until such time as either party gives a 30-day notice. That's the way the contract is.
We actually signed a contract that ran until June 30th, but we did not hire them until sometime, I believe,
In August.
in August. We didn't even interview until in August.
Right, but Mark has interpreted that first year of the contract, I believe your position is it ended on,
The
it'll end on
appointment,
June 30th.
Because the board
the
voted.
appointment ended on June 30th.
Correct.
We signed a contract to run until June 30th.
But
So-
I believe Brooks and Durensis said that's not in the contract. Has that
There-
been cleared up?
I'm
No,
not really
'cause
sure
there's
that
no date in the contract.
I'm not sure that it matters in that
Okay,
if or when the contract expires, it continues month to month.
Correct.
You know, for me, I think that a lot of the financial, discrepancies, if you were known when we opted to change, town councils. You know, for me, the concerns that I had at that point that led me in this direction, you know, I've seen nothing to change them. I think for me as an individual, particularly where we haven't had any of these conversations around communication, or we're just finding out about a form and protocols that we have in place, that trial period, if you wanna call it that, for me, I'm comfortable extending it through to bring this before the board again in June of 2020. That, you know, I think even a 1-year trial is kind of a short period. You're gonna spend the first 6 or 9 months under the best of circumstances, getting acclimated and working out, kinks and, you know, oddities and things. You know, that said, obviously I would go along with a shorter time frame. I think August, you know, continuing it at this point through time certain through the end of August is, we're gonna see this on our agenda again
Awfully
in
soon.
2 weeks. So I'm not
2
sure,
meetings.
yeah, I'm not sure that gains us anything. You know, December 31st is a little bit later, which is good in that sense. It's something of an arbitrary date to me. It doesn't necessarily give us budgeting certainty. You know, it makes sense at the end of a calendar year, but I'm not sure in terms of fiscal municipal function that it does.
Well, you would set the budget for fiscal '21 based on what you had at the time. So if you continue through December 31st and make a decision, when I put the budget together in November, I will take into consideration the current expenditures when I put that together. So I don't think that matters. I think, if I can make a recommendation, I think December 31st is a good cutoff date, because I don't think that Johnson trial is gonna end in 2 months. So I think if you do it through December 31st, I think that gives you a chance to work out any kinks. I'll make a commitment to the board that I will improve my communication with Paul moving forward. I do want to keep Brian Mazur as Labor Counsel. I don't want to change that. So I'd ask the board to please continue with KP as Labor Counsel in the interim as well. We have some stuff going on that I really want Brian to stay with us, that he's been working on right away, that he's been working on all along, similar to how you don't want to give up that Johnson case.
Josh,
Take a stab at a motion.
go for it.
I move that we continue with Brooks and Durensis as town council through at least December 31st, 2019 for a general labor council at the current rates, and further, I'll make a separate motion on that. I have 3 motions, that's the first one.
So, I'll
General-
second that, but could I ask, are you anticipating that we would continue with the 2?
2 other things I'm gonna make motions on.
Okay.
So what you're saying, or what you're proposing is that we'll stay with Brooks and Durentis, including personnel issues
Stay with
until
Brooks and
December 31st?
Durensis through at least December 31st, 2019, subject to review by this board no later than November 15th, 2019. How about that?
Okay,
That's the first motion.
But it's just general labor.
General labor, at the moment.
General legal.
General legal, thank you.
General
That's
legal,
what I'm
right,
struggling
right,
with.
sorry, that's the
that's what I was struggling with.
You want a general
Labor
legal
or
counsel?
legal?
He said legal.
Yes, I've got
So-
2 other motions. That's the
And
first.
can you give us is one of those motions going to involve an RFP, and is one of them going to
No,
involve
that'll be
labor
a
council?
4th one.
Can you tell,
Under discussion, the other 2
Yes.
motions are gonna consist, I further will move that Brooks and Durensis continue as special counsel beyond December 31st, 2019 to handle the Johnson litigation. The 3rd motion I would be offering would be to continue with Copeland and Page as labor counsel through December 31st. And the 4th motion would be on November 15th of or November 1st of 2019 to put out an RFP for combined legal and labor counsel under a retainer. Those will be the 4 motions that I will offer.
okay, so we have one motion on the table.
Now that, there's the taste of it.
Yes, is there any discussion of the motion to retain Brooks and Durensis through the end of December as general legal counsel?
With a decision made
By
by
November
By
1st.
November 15th, I think you said.
November 15th on that first motion.
As to direction thereafter. So what we'll do,
But if we go ahead and vote about having an RFP on November 1st.
They stay as a carryover until we make a decision.
Oh, okay. Maybe I don't know.
We could make another one at such point, but a carryover is fine for legal.
Becky already seconded that, didn't she?
yeah,
So-
yeah.
That's great.
Is there any further discussion or questions on that motion? All in favor?
Aye. I move that we appoint Copeland and Page, general
Actually, it's
labor.
KP Law.
Excuse me, KP Law, General Labor Council through December 31st, 2019, subject to review on November 15th, 2019,
Second.
at the current rates.
That was made very clear.
At the current rate.
Yep.
Second.
Is there discussion? Questions? All in favor?
I move that we
Aye.
appoint Brooks and Durensis as special counsel to handle the Johnson litigation case through its conclusion and until such point that the select board determines that other counsel take over if applicable.
Second.
Discussion or questions? All in favor?
And finally, I move that on November 1st, 2019, that the select board, through its town manager, issue an RFP for a combination general legal and labor counsel through one firm.
I second that.
Discussion or questions? All in favor?
Thank you.
So it's that time of year for the board to make your annual appointments. I have provided you with a,
Hold on, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mark.
Yep.
I have one follow-up question. It was mentioned, Paul had mentioned wanting to get a packet on a routine basis. I see no reason why that would not be granted.
Nope.
And in fact,
it'll be on our distribution list. When we send it to you, we'll send it to him.
okay, and I also have some lingering questions. I've often thought that in fact, I've often wondered why that is not a public document as soon as we get it. And so I actually asked for an opinion from town council that's appropriate as to, is that in fact releasable to the public when we get it, since it's all going to be discussed in a public meeting? I know that there are towns that include it on their website with the agenda. They include a link to the packet.
I've never been comfortable having that packet released to the public until after the board meets and discusses it on a Monday night. We post my town manager's report the very next day on the website, so people have that. I would prefer, if you want to make it a public packet, which we can do, we post it after the board meets that night. I think the board should talk about it first before, plus we have 10 days under the open meeting records law before we have to release a request for public documents. That would be my recommendation.
Josh?
Since town council's here, do you know of any other communities that do what Board Member Pine is suggesting?
Most do. When I put a caveat there, that sometimes the packet contains executive session material that does not get released to the public. The part that gets normally posted, so I would say the general rule is you post the public portion of your meeting packet so that the press and the public have that. It's better transparency, it's better compliance with the open meeting law, it is just better government. That's the general rule, that there isn't a law that says that must be done that way. But if you ask me what I would recommend, I'd recommend that you, when you do your agenda, you post your packets too.
Perhaps you could provide us a list of some other towns that do that, so we would know that we're in good or bad company.
Paul, just as a quick question. I've never been comfortable posting it in advance, in part because I think that the public and more so the press, not necessarily the press that are here, then has the capability to kind of look at what they think is gonna be discussed, write their article, make their decisions, and ignore what actually goes on at the meeting.
That's my concern.
Have you seen that, or is that kind of an unfounded concern?
Don brought up a good point that I wasn't really good at articulating, but tonight, for example, if you posted the packet as is, the subject matter is out there. The press sees what we're gonna be talking about, they can determine if they wanna come and cover the meeting or not. But all of a sudden, I gave additional information tonight that you guys didn't have when I posted the packet on Monday, that you discussed tonight. I don't understand why we post it on Tuesday. We send out your packet on Friday. We'll post it on Tuesday. I don't understand what the extra day does. Transparency or not, you're posting an agenda that talks about all the subject matter. The backup information that you're talking about tonight, I don't understand why that can't wait until Tuesday. It's within the open meeting law. We're not violating the open meeting law by doing it. We have 10 days to do it. I would just be more comfortable. I don't care what other towns do. I care about what the town of Groton does. I would be more comfortable in the town of Groton to wait until after the board has that discussion on a Monday night before we release the packet. Because in my town manager's report, for example, I talked about executive session stuff at the beginning of the meeting. I give you information. I don't want that out there. I want to avoid any problems until the
Wait.
board discusses it.
You didn't,
That's my feeling.
I mean, obviously, I don't think anyone's advocating to have executive session information shared.
I'm not, I understand that, Becky. I'm just saying, what's the problem waiting until Tuesday after the meeting on Monday? The subject matter is posted more than 48 hours. We post the agenda on Thursday. So we put the agenda out there 48 hours in advance. We don't send out the packet until Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, having been around for a few years here, I understand the town manager's concern because the press has a way, and again, not those present, of doing alternative facts. And those facts sometimes are not facts, they're just conjecture. And I think that the agenda is doing a very good job of conveying what it is that we'll be discussing at any given time. And that any of the backup information certainly is fully available and fully transparent once we meet and subject to release. So while I understand the opinion that Becky has offered, and part of me wants to agree with it, and I certainly understand what Paul Durensis has expressed, I think it's just setting ourselves up by releasing it for undue ridicule and exposure by the public for conjecture that is not necessary.
I agree.
Okay,
All right,
so,
moving on.
I have one
John?
related.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's two things. Number one, in order for Mark to be able to better manage where we were incurring expenses for labor law issues, that nobody on the board places a call to Brooks and Durentis for labor things. And if you're not sure whether it is labor or not, talk to Mark first. And the other thing is, we may need, not tonight, but we may need to do a review among ourselves on just what are the rules about who picks up the phone and can call legal. I'm not sure that's clear with everybody. Or maybe it is.
It's pretty cut and dry, John.
Well, I think it is, but we seem to be getting away from it a little bit, collectively, of course.
Never hurts to review.
okay. Annual appointments, I'll read the names into the list. Terms expire on June 30, 2020, unless otherwise noted. I'd ask the board to consider making these appointments at the conclusion of each page. So starting out with the Affordable Housing Trust, Rebecca Pine. Commemorations and Celebrations Committee, Donald Black, Michael Lutz, Dale McCurdy, Robert Johnson. Complete Streets Committee, George Barringer, Ellen Baxendale, Michelle Collette, Peter Cunningham, Tom Delaney, Steve Legg, Kristen Von Camp. Conservation Commission, terms to expire June 30, 2022, Peter Morrison, Larry Hurley. Council on Aging, with terms to expire June 30, 2022, Gene Sheedy, Kellen Senkowitz, I hope I said that right, and Moran Coesian. Housing Partnership, Michelle Collette, Peter Cunningham, Carolyn Perkins. Invasive Species Committee, Brian Betancourt, Adam Burnett, Richard Hewitt, Olin Lathrop. I'd ask the board to make those appointments this evening.
I'll second for the purposes of discussion.
Yeah, someone needs to make the motion first.
I'll
John?
move it then.
I'll
Perfect.
second it.
Very good. Any discussion or questions?
Yes.
Josh?
I had indicated to Don and Mark and some of you that I would not continue in my capacity as a trustee on the Affordable Housing Trust. And Becky had indicated by showing up to some of our meetings that she had interest in that. It was my understanding that the terms of the trustees were rolling terms, correct?
2-year terms.
So then the date
Your term, Josh,
is 2 year?
is 2021 is your
sure?
expiration, yes. So Becky would be appointed for 1 year now, and then 2 years, if she wants to stay on as the trustee next year, 2 years next year. So you're actually resigning your term early. We reappointed you to a 2-year term last year.
Oh, because when Dawn had sent out the interest form, if I wanted to be reappointed, that's why I responded, and I really have no intention of resigning from anything.
So you didn't know you were quitting?
Dawn, did you not send that out to me? And I responded to you? I'm not trying to throw you under the bus here.
Yeah, it's an automatic.
Maybe I might have read it wrong.
Somebody sent it to me, asking me if I wanted to re-up.
So can we have a friendly amendment to remove that appointment from this batch, and then we'll proceed on and
Thank you.
come back to that?
Please, somebody help me on that one.
It was your motion, are you okay with that?
I am.
Okay. Just checking.
I have a
out here,
question.
I think. Oh,
on
no.
Yep,
on a
Becky,
different
and
issue.
then- Yeah.
The Complete Streets Committee, are they still working? Town manager, testing answer the question.
It very well may be that they are. One moment, please. Connie, did you have a question as well?
I didn't mean to throw you a curveball, guys, down there.
You're gonna
Alright.
stay on for the remainder of this term.
Mark?
Now's your
I'm
chance.
sorry, I'm
Sorry.
I apologize.
Can you give us an update on the current status and, of the Complete Streets Committee, what they're up to, whether they're still?
Well, there's still some projects that they're completing. Unfortunately, as I think I indicated to the board, we heard that once you get a grant, you cannot apply again for another grant. So we got our grant last year, but they still have some work left to do, and I was hoping to get George in here. So I do want you to reappoint them for next year, and then when the work is done, the work is done.
Okay, they're the people who are in charge of getting that crosswalk in front of the Salt and
There you
Light.
go.
Okay.
There's a first time for everything, right? So when's my term up?
We're gonna have to confirm it, because I thought we reappointed you last year. So we'll bring that back if we need to next week, or
No,
next meeting.
No, actually, I'm gonna, if I am not on, I'm gonna tender my resignation as an Affordable Housing Trust trustee, if my term expires on June 30th
Of this year.
of this year.
If it
And
doesn't,
I will tender that with the town clerk if you tell me.
well,
I
you
need
don't
Wait,
wish
wait,
to be
no.
reappointed with that.
So I'm gonna, the friendly amendment's gonna go away because
Right, he doesn't want to be reappointed, and if he has a
I
year
don't wanna
left,
be,
he'll step
I think
back.
Becky will do a great job.
I agree.
So we're gonna remove that
So we're
friendly
gonna go
amendment.
back on this. I have a reason for this.
You'll resign if you need to.
Could-
That's
Could
slightly
you-
comforting, but
Okay.
Mark, could you
Yes.
or the town clerk communicate with our legislators to have somebody determine what is going on for funding for Complete Streets? I don't doubt what you've heard, because I've heard it too, but I don't know.
George Behringer was gonna come in 2 weeks ago and give you an update, but he's been traveling, so I'm waiting for another date from him.
Okay.
sounds good.
Alrighty.
That'll probably solve it
So
when he comes.
Well, we'll
have
get-
we
we'll bring it
voted?
No.
We have a motion on the table to appoint the first sheet of folks as listed. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm missing a page. Because there was another appointment on here that I thought I had.
Well, then we hit Lowell
I
Transit.
had updated, no, that's right, I had updated the page. So, yeah. So I'm gonna go to the screen and read the names. Lowell Regional Transit Authority, George Ryder. MBTA Advisory Board, John Riley. Montechusett Joint Transportation Committee, Joshua Deegan. Montechusett Regional Planning Committee, Joshua Deegan, Mark Haddad. Personnel Board, term to expire June 30th, 2022, Bud Robinson. Prescott Oversight Committee, I put to be determined because I know the board hadn't finalized it, but I'm nominating Josh Deegan to the board for consideration. Sergeants Beach Committee, June 30th, 2022, Cheney Harper, Andrew Davis. Scholarship Committee, June 30th, 2022, Brian LeBlanc, Jeffrey Cromer, Sustainability Commission, Carl Canner, Bruce Eastham, Allison Peterson, Marina Kabatayeva. Zoning Board of Appeals, Jay Prager, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Bruce Eastham, term to expire June 30th, 2022. Alternates, Dan McLaughlin and Jennifer Spencer, alternates, terms to expire June 30th, 2020. I'd ask the board to make those appointments this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
On the Prescott Oversight Committee.
Yep.
My understanding of that, and I want to be corrected if I don't have the right understanding, is that this is an oversight of the lease.
Correct.
Okay, so it's really the Prescott Lease Oversight Committee.
Okay.
And I think it would help us to be clear on that.
Yep, you're right.
It's the lease, but it also is taking a hard look at the financials involved with how well they're doing.
Which we're gonna start after June 30th.
Yes,
But that's part of the lease.
yes.
Correct.
Correct,
Correct.
John,
Yep.
because we incorporated that.
And just for the reason you're only pointing Josh is the way you made up that committee is a representative from the Finance Committee and me. So I'm already on there. This is the board's representative.
Can you insert the word lease in there for
Yes, I will.
next time?
We will do that.
Prescott Lease Oversight Committee, correct?
Yes.
Good point.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And then last week, when I gave you my appointments, we had, on the Cable Advisory Committee, there was a change. So I want to give you a corrected list on that and a corrected list on the Commission on Accessibility. I'm making these appointments and I'm asking the board to ratify those appointments. To the Cable Advisory Committee, Neil Colicchio, Robert Pichet, Janet Sheffield, Eric Fisher, John McLeod. Commission on Accessibility, Robert Fleischer, Mark Shack, Carolyn Sutton, Alan Taylor, and Jane Fry. I'd ask the board to ratify those appointments tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. So we had had an executive session to discuss a contract with the fire chief. And the board had met last week and this week.
Is this item still relevant?
Yes,
Or
it
are
is
we-
absolutely 100% relevant.
Just thought I'd check in.
Nope, I wouldn't have brought it up if it wasn't, but I'm glad you asked.
I figured, but.
No, I'm glad you asked.
Better be safe
Yep,
than sorry.
I want you to be safe. So, we had signed a contract with the chief back in June for a 3-year contract,
No,
January rather, for a 3-year contract that paid him, that would pay him $125,000 effective July 1st, and then years, you can stay, just abstain from the discussion.
But I'm just gonna recuse myself from the discussion and what follows.
Yep, and the, year 1 would be 125,000, year 2 would be up to 3% based on performance, as would year 3 up to 3% based on performance. Due to a bunch of things that had gone on, the select board had decided to sit down with the chief and renegotiate a contract with him, again, to bring him into compensation that other fire chiefs in the area had received. So the board has decided, and the chief has accepted, a revised contract. So basically, if the board is willing to ratify this evening, the current agreement would be terminated and a new 1-year agreement would go into effect for July 1st, 2019, fiscal year 20, at a salary of $125,000, which is what is in the budget, and then a stipend to serve as emergency management director, which you ratified my appointment of him last week, of $4,000. The remaining 2 years of that contract would be terminated. The current agreement would be terminated. So it would be $125,000 and $4,000 for the stipend. That contract would expire on June 30th, 2020. Effective on July 1st, 2020, the board would enter into a new 3-year agreement with the chief, in which he would be paid, effective July 1st, 2020, an annual salary of $130,000. The stipend for EMD director would remain the same. Years 2 and 3 of that contract, effective July 1st, 2021 and July 1st, 2022, the chief would be eligible for a performance incentive increase in his base pay of 1 or 3% based on if he meets the requirements of the job, or 3% if he exceeds the requirements of the job. If he needs improvement, he would receive no additional compensation. The fire chief has agreed to those terms. I would ask the select board to consider ratifying those 2 agreements this evening.
I make,
First
Everyone's
thing,
got hands up.
well,
Good.
you wanna do it? I move that we nullify the existing contract with the fire chief. That's my first motion.
Well, we nullify it at a certain date.
Nullify it as of June 30th,
As of June 30th, 2019.
20,
19.
20.
Nope.
19.
And then we have a one-year contract,
19.
and then we have a 3-year.
No, I want you to nullify the remaining, the years 2 and 3 of the current agreement.
I understand your
That's what I
point.
want you to do.
I move that we nullify years 2 and 3 of the fire chief's existing contract. I understand your point.
Effective June
June
30th,
2019.
20.
19, but we're nullifying years 2 and 3.
Which,
I don't wanna nullify his contract and put him out of a job
No, no,
right
no,
now.
no. He has a signed contract with the board that goes into effect July 1st, 2019, in which you're gonna pay him $125,000.
Correct.
I want you to nullify
Nullify
that
years.
contract on June 30th, 2020, and institute a new 3-year contract on July 1st, 2020. Trust me, that's what you wanna do.
Somebody else make the motion. I withdraw my motion.
So moved.
second.
Is there any discussion on that motion?
well, it just occurred to me, I believe that the stipend that we will be paying for the year that begins on July 1st, 2019, has to be approved at fall town.
That's why it's gonna be a separate article to pay that, and so I don't want you to agree to that until we go to the fall town meeting. But that's gonna be the stipend paid. I wanna make sure we do everything.
Okay, so what is the motion that is on the floor?
I want the board to terminate the agreement for years 2 and 3. The current agreement that goes into effect July 1st, 2019, to terminate on June 30th, 2020. That's what I want you to do. That's the first motion.
Questions, discussion?
I don't like it.
How else would you do it?
What would you like to do, Josh?
I'd like to issue a 1-year, nullify the contract effective June 30th, 2019, and issue a 1-year contract effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, at a salary of $125,000 with a $4,000 stipend for emergency management director with a performance incentive
No.
No
There's
performance
nothing.
incentive.
No
One-year
performance
contract.
It's a 1-year
incentive.
contract.
of, you don't wanna hear
It's not there.
0%. And then enter into, because you're nullifying the contract, you're changing it, you should enter into a 1-year deal.
Keep going.
Just the difference is how
I
we
don't
get
think
to
it
there.
matters.
Yeah. Josh, it's cleaner if you nullify years 2 and 3. Leave the current agreement in place.
Fine, I'll go with your motion, Alice. That's fine.
But the stipend has to not be
The
part of it.
stipend isn't
I'm
tied to
gonna
the
ask you to take a
contract.
second motion on that, Becky.
It's a separate motion.
Right.
Okay, so the motion on the table nullifies years 2 and 3 effective 6/30/2020.
Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, I want you to make another motion, please,
Vote
to
stipend.
issue a stipend for emergency management director of $4,000 for fiscal 20, to be requested at the fall town meeting in October of 2019.
Subject to town meeting approval in the fall of 2020. 19.
19.
Yes, 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 yes. That's a motion.
Are you making a motion? I'll second that. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I move that we enter into a new contract with the fire chief effective July 1st, 2020, for remuneration of $130,000 per year, for year 1, with year 2. There's no year 2 and 3, is there?
Yep, years 2
Yeah.
and
Years 2 and 3, subject to a performance review by the town manager where 0% is for needs improvement, 1% for meets expectations, and 3% for exceeds expectations.
Okay, but we didn't get that 3% performance.
Added to his base.
Added to his base.
That's what
That's
we
what John
agreed to
said.
the other day.
Correct.
No,
It was
today.
actually an hour ago.
Yeah, now, well, I get it. That's
Second.
my motion.
Second.
Should the stipend be included in
No.
that?
I wanna
Or-
put the well, no, I do
Separate.
wanna put the stipend
What we
No.
wanna do is establish a
separate
rate for
job.
the
Establish rate
stipend,
for stipend.
and then assign
just-
people to
okay.
the
Correct.
job.
That's fine.
Correct. Good point.
So I will second that motion.
I already seconded
Oh,
it.
fine. Then I will third that motion.
I'll fourth it if that's what we
Okay, any
need.
other
There's the
discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay,
you,
we'd like to go
everybody.
into the ongoing issues list. I have a couple of updates for the board. With regards to the senior center building project, I'm trying to get the board members, when you're available, to come down and meet and go through it. I put an offer to Becky for tomorrow at 12:30 to join us. We have our usual job meeting at 1, and we usually tour the building beforehand. So if there are any members that want to meet us down there tomorrow at 12:30, please do, if you're around. I would love for you to see the senior center.
I
Yep.
went today,
Oh, you went today?
yeah,
There you go.
I toured today.
Nice.
Very nice.
Impressed?
It's very nice.
So Becky, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow at 12:30?
Yep.
Excellent. I don't know if anybody else is available tomorrow at 12:30. If you are, please meet us down there. The project is going well. With regards to the Green Communities application and implementation, we received an email the other day that Becky and I received from Karen Chapman of MRPC. She wants to get together with us to start filling out the process and starting the process to get that implemented. We're trying to get some dates secured. We'll get our town manager working group together to do that. And we will keep the board apprised of our progress, but that is in process. So that's going well. With regards to the charter approval, I'm gonna use this to talk about another piece of legislation. Next Tuesday, June 25th at 11 a.m., the Local Affairs, Government Affairs Committee, Municipal Government Affairs Committee, at 11 o'clock is gonna hold a hearing on our proposed legislation for Olivia Way. Members of the Earth Removal Stormwater Committee are going to go into Boston. If I can make it work, I will also go representing the town, and hopefully we'll get a positive output from them relative to that issue. So that's in process. I want to let the board know that that's happening. With regards to the Route 1...
But you skipped over the charter, what is?
Oh, I was using that, Becky, just to, that's still in process.
And is there any new news on that?
It got released, and it should be voted on by the end of June by the Senate and the House.
Senate's voted on it.
Yeah, so then the House.
It's in the House now.
Yep.
Okay, good.
So it's working well. We're gonna have a
We
new
need to,
charter.
we need to keep contact
It's
with
in the
our
House.
rep
Yep. I
to
agree.
get this thing done by the end of before they go home.
They,
for the
they,
summer.
they take a leave on July 1st, right?
Well,
July 31st.
Unless the vest isn't, yeah, July 31st.
It'll be done.
Is that Kennedy or is it?
No, this
it's-
is
No,
Harrington.
that's
No.
Rep. Harrington.
Kennedy already got it through the Senate.
That's what I thought.
With regards to the Route 119 sidewalk installation, punch list has been done, work is completed. I would like to take that off the list.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, coming off.
The only
Is
thing
Tom
that I,
signed off?
Yes.
the only thing I think that hasn't been reconciled is the state failed to include in their design the crosswalk flashers for the crosswalk that's right in front of the elementary school. And that really is a safety thing, because kids do go
Yeah.
across there.
That hasn't been done?
No, it has
I'll
not
leave that
been
on the
done.
list. I will get that.
Well, I don't know who's working it
Can
with
you
the
send a
state.
letter to
Oh.
Mass Highway 3 on that?
Were they supposed to do that?
I don't know if that was part
I
of the
think they
side.
left it out of their design by mistake, or something.
So this is the
But they
crossing
have-
light
it
at the middle
hasn't been
school?
done, and it's an important crossing. I mean, all
Right.
important,
Super
all crossings are
important, John.
important, but this one has children traffic,
Right.
and it's not in the
Well, spec-
greatest places for, in terms of long view of,
So it's right at the base of the Florence Roach driveway?
yes. The
Across from
markings
the
on
parking
the,
lot.
are
So
there.
finally, we have a sidewalk for them to go to actually cross the street
No,
there.
they need a crosswalk.
Now
But
we
you
need a
have to
really
go
good
across.
crosswalk, right?
Those lighted crosswalks work very, very well, by the way.
Most
Oh,
of-
excellent.
Most of
It's
the time.
amazing when you leave Boutwell House across the street in a Bobcat across the street, how you push the button, it's a Bobcat crossing too.
They're changing the signs.
With
Well-
regards to Florence Roach, please, as a reminder, since we're not meeting next week, our next meeting is July 1st. I will post you at 6 o'clock if you're interested in going to that Florence Roach School Feasibility Study Committee, Building Committee, whatever we're calling it, at 6 o'clock over at the middle school. So please put that in your calendars if you're interested.
What
Lo-
day is that? I'm sorry.
The 25th at 6. Do you have that?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
didn't know where to
send out
look.
a
I needed your
reminder?
guidance
June
on where to
6th.
find it.
June 25th at
June.
6.
2/5 at
25th.
6.
Yeah, June 25th at 6. Library roof repair, the notice to proceed has been issued. They're having the pre-construction meeting tomorrow or Wednesday? Wednesday, so that project's ongoing. Highway garage renovations, they still within that 10-day period to get the contract stuff back. Pepper landfill, I want to apologize to the board for my bad information that I had heard.
Gonna say it.
I'm so glad you yelled at me about that. I sent to you this afternoon an update from the Pepperell Town Administrator. That is still ongoing and they're still fighting it in court. So I'm not sure what next steps are, but I gave you all the information that I have.
John?
I would like to see the select board on behalf of the town, and we're in a butter at the town level, to communicate to the board that's gonna review this, our concerns. So perhaps Mark can draft that and sync it with the town administrator in Pepperell, and we can get it out of here fairly quickly.
I was gonna basically raise the same point. I guess I was wondering whether our Takashi or Nick could give us some specifics about why we are opposed to this.
So I'll work with Takashi and Nick to draft the letter to
Right,
bring to you.
I was
They're
just sort
probably
of.
very similar to the ones that that Pepperell has already identified.
Right, right. I
Right.
was certainly, yeah, I'm very concerned about that project. So-
I'll bring it back for your July 1st meeting.
Thank you.
And then, that's all I have.
Yes.
Can we go back to F, please? We have talked about a capital asset, planning committee for a while, and it seems to have, lost momentum. And I would like it to regain momentum. So we need the charge for the capital asset planning committee. We need to discuss it further, to get John Riley up to speed on that, and then do an evaluation of what it is that we own, whether it's a truck, a building, whatever it is. So when we look at the replacement of a building, whether it be a senior center, a fire station, a DPW garage, or whatever it is, nobody's blindsided and feels like we haven't had the discussions. So I would love to see that charge put in place as soon as possible and us to appoint that committee.
We have a select board member in charge of that goal.
That's me.
It is.
I know that. So then the town manager and I will commit to having that completed no later than July 31st and brought back to this board for approval. How about that, Mark?
Whatever the board needs.
Let's sit down and do it, okay?
My recollection is that it was the MICA,
Exactly.
Major Initiative and Capital Asset
Asset.
Committee.
Planning Committee.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
So can we
I would
please
like
get
to ask that we make sure, this could be a committee within what we call the Finance Committee. Or it could be separate from them. And I think once the charge is done, there ought to be some dialogue with the Finance Committee of whether they want to treat finance as a full word or they just want to see it as an operating budget.
Right, I think we've had some feedback on that, but it's worth having it again after we draft something more official for them to respond to.
Mark, let's set something up for next week, because this week's tight, and then let's work on it, and then we can run a draft by the FinCom and get some responses before we bring it to this board. Does that sound fair?
Yep.
Thank you.
Are there any liaison reports?
John, how's things going in electric light?
Everything's looking bright.
Power's on.
I just,
Actually, John and I are both
That's
going
right.
to meet with the electric light commissioners and Kevin Kelly on Thursday to explore more and address some of their questions about the Green Communities program And I asked for this meeting, and then I said, but since I'm handing over the liaison, I'd like to bring John along, so they said sure.
And if you can find out what happened in Uruguay, let us know.
I could give you a report on the MBTA. We haven't had any of those problems like they're having in the Red Line here in Groton since I
Nice.
took the liaisonship.
You've been doing a great job.
I know it.
Alrighty.
We've got a set of minutes in here.
Yep, that's what I'm just gonna move us to. We have one set of regular meeting minutes dated June 10th. I would entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any concerns or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Very good.
I move that we adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.